Hello and welcome back to Control-Alt-Dev. I'm Sean and alongside me is Paul, and today we're diving into the future of recruitment, asking the question, is there a future? Now AI is here. We'll explore what that means for recruiters, their clients and of course their candidates.
Yeah, thanks Sean, and it's a fascinating time for recruitment. AI is no longer a distant concept. It's already shaping how we screen, interview and hire candidates. So do you want to set the scene for us, Sean?
Yeah, let's rewind a bit. So back when I was writing and developing software, Paul, for Voyager Software, that software company developed software for recruitment for both candidates and clients. And we built software tools to do keyword checking of CVs. So the logic was to scan for certain keywords and rank those candidates to interview via a shortlist. So it's simple, but concept was quite flawed because the more keywords you stuffed into the CV, of course, the better the score. Then we improved the CV parser technology for better matching. And I'm not even sure today if they're still using that concept. But of course, now we're in the era of ChatGPT and other AI tools that can not only shift through CVs quicker and even help out with videos of the candidates themselves, looking for certain behaviours and tones, not just the text on the CV. In effect, the final interview may be the only part that is human, cutting down all the faff.
Yeah, and I guess from our perspective as like business owners and software kind of agencies, recruitment is always front of mind. We've always got the dilemma about resourcing. And, I'd imagine that recruitment software itself is evolving fast right now. I've had quite a few conversations lately that I'll dive into as we go, where it's really interesting what people are doing and how much more advanced they are in their recruitment process than we are. But I guess the question is, again, always, it's not whether AI will impact recruitment, it's how fast and exactly how it's going to do it and who is going to adapt as well, who's going to embrace it.
Yeah, I think the scary thing is, watching that, is AI going to take my job on Channel 4 some weeks ago? It's simply that. It's where in the process is the human getting involved. And if it's evolving now in the AI screening, the matching, even the interviewing, then it does raise some legal and ethical issues.
Yeah, so there's actually a fascinating study out of Frontiers in Psychology where almost 700 recruiters were tested to see how they react when an algorithm recommends candidates versus a human. And what they found is that most recruiters say that humans are trusted more, but in practice, they often follow what the algorithm says, even when it's wrong.
So they just trust the machine, but they still do what it tells them to do.
Exactly, and it's called automation bias. And people assume the AI knows something that it doesn't, or can see hidden patterns that they've missed. So one surprising outcome was that when the AI made a bad recommendation, say they picked the wrong CV, recruiters were more likely to follow that, even if a human had made the same mistake. So basically, the algorithm's confidence made them second guess their own judgment.
Yeah, and that's true, isn't it? Because most things you kind of put into like a ChatGPT or an AI tool, you kind of believe it straight away, don't you?
Yeah.
I know you and I have done sort of things where we've put stuff in and gone, is that actually correct, what it's responding back to?
Yeah. I think you have to have a healthy level of skepticism.
You absolutely do, and it's wild, really, because experienced recruiters can be swayed by AI authority, even when they don't trust it consciously. Is absolutely mad.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that it misses completely is personality plays a massive part, doesn't it, in the recruitment of any role. And so people who are more extroverted or less neurotic tended to trust automation more. So it's, again, their personality as a recruiter. And so while older or more experienced recruiters are actually less likely to trust the AI because of those reasons you've just discussed. So it's clear that the tech is already influencing decisions, often without people even realising it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, 70% of employees plan to use AI in recruitment, and most of them will do it without any human insight. So we're already halfway to AI-assisted recruitment, whether we admit it or not. The next step is, I suppose, learning how to use it responsibly rather than pretending it's not there at all.
Yeah, and I think that's why we said earlier in previous podcasts as well that the future of recruitment isn't just about replacing people, it's about redefining trust. So recruiters need to understand when to rely on AI and when to question it. Otherwise, they risk automating their own bias or letting algorithms make decisions that they don't even agree with.
So, yeah, another article reports employers increasingly plan to use AI in recruitment in 2026. So, we're looking at now the automated rejections when AI decides that you're not hired. So, Paul, get this, a new resume builder survey said that by 2026, nearly 70% of employees plan to use AI in recruitment, and most of them will do it without any human oversight.
Yeah, and I think that's really scary. We've talked about AI screening CVs, but now it's moving beyond that, isn't it? The report starts to talk about companies are starting to let AI handle every stage, from screening, interviewing, and even rejecting candidates.
Yeah, it's becoming fully automated. So, I mean, the numbers are staggering. 83% of employees plan to use AI for obviously the initial CV reviewing. 69% will use analytical tools to assess obviously the skills, and nearly 20% want to actually run interviews entirely through AI. So you imagine you're going for an interview, Paul, and it's you go back. Let's go back 30 years, Paul, and you're in that interview process. You may not even see a human being in 2026, and you might have had 4 interviews prior to that, of which AI, and apparently what they're going to be doing as well is AI could assess you in 4 different ways. So one could be assessing how you're actually coming over to the camera. The other one could be looking at posture. The other one could be looking at you and your appearance. I mean, that's got to be scary, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I also fully understand why. Like anyone who's ever recruited yourself and you've kind of done the classic job board post or job advert, and then you get applicants and you have to go through everything. I remember having a job in the early 2000s where I was a development manager, and I think I had 200 CVs printed out on my desk, and I had to go through each one to try, to create that shortlist, if that makes sense. And there is, I think you said the word faff earlier on, but there is a lot of like sifting of people who've applied for a role who aren't even eligible, like they're not even. So I think from a productivity gain, it makes total sense why people are looking at AI. And I think it can help with some of those fundamental flaws in the process. I think the dangers are if you fully rely on it, and all of the things that we're going to come on to is why that could be a potential problem. And if you talk about 70% of employers, that's a huge statistic, and doing it without any human insight. So yeah, basically, like you said, you could apply for a job, never speak to a human, get a rejection email generated by an algorithm, and it's efficient, but it's cold and it's not human.
Exactly, and that's where the ethical side kicks in, doesn't it? Because the survey also found out that almost all hiring managers admit AI can produce biased results, especially around, as we just mentioned, how you look, your age, your gender, your race, and your social economic background. It's frightening, I think, because the days of kind of the first process of, yes, your CV lands, maybe it's using some software that I wrote years ago that parses your CV and then sets up the interview process. But then potentially not seeing a human being for another 3 or 4 interviews is quite frightening. Because as we know, Paul, these LLM tools are only as good as the data that's being fed into it.
100%. If there's bias in the AI, it's put there by the knowledge that it's picked up, if that makes sense. So it's like, if you only have to look at society and go, well, if AI is a reflection of society, then you understand why those biases exist, don't you? So, and it's a trade-off really between speed and the productivity gain versus fairness, isn't it? So the systems are great at filtering thousands and thousands of applications and volume. And, we talked about hiring as an individual, like a company. You imagine your recruitment agency, it makes total sense to do the filtering and stuff like that. But they can easily screen out good candidates just because of the wording on their CV, or it doesn't fit the model's patterns. So that's the trade-off, isn't it? Speed versus fairness.
Spot on. I mean, the study pointed out that while the early stages of AI screening might dip slightly next year, reliance on AI for final hiring decisions is actually expected to increase. So companies, obviously, yes, they see it as a way to boost efficiency, but is it fair? And I suppose from our point of view, Paul, I suppose, as you rightly said, when you were scouring through 200 CVs on your desk, a recruiter would have done that for you and charged you potentially 10% fee.
That's 100%. And that's why, honestly, that one experience at that one company where it was a zero, we never use agencies. Whenever I started my own businesses, I've only ever used agencies. I never wanted to go back. There was obviously alternative, cheaper ways, but I was like, no, that time and that process that they go through and stuff. And there's a whole, total different podcast of agency versus DIY. But I understand why agencies would use it.
Yeah, and also just picking up on what I just said there. I mean, the 10% fee. So if you're hiring someone that's a £60,000 a year Python developer, and you're looking to spend 10%, or you give 10% of a fee back to a recruiter, so £6,000. It's a massive saving.
I don't think it's 10% anymore, Sean.
No, I think I'm
more like
stuck
30%.
Well, exactly. Okay, so £18,000 and or whatever it is, you're going to, as an employer, you're going to be looking at tools like this, aren't you? Surely.
Yeah, or you're still gonna want the time gain. So you're gonna want the agency who uses the AI to find you the best talent. Because the role of any CEO is to be constantly trying to find the best talent that you can for your business. But I think there's nothing wrong with using the tools. It's how they're using it. I think that's the bigger question: is who's accountable when the AI gets it wrong? And if a great candidate is rejected, can they appeal or even know why? It's almost like, the Little Britain sketch of like computer says no. It's like, if you appeal, does it just go back into the same algorithm and go? And, I know it's a bit of a strange analogy.
I think that's
it's not too dissimilar, is it?
No, great analogy. I think that's the danger. Employers are being warned, aren't they, to make sure the systems comply. I mean, there will be laws around this. I'm sure there will be, but that's the worry as well. Is where does it go? Who is monitoring the data that's going in? Because we're risking turning recruitment into a black box where the machine decides your future. And that, I suppose, is a great subject in itself, but that is scary.
It's basically playing God, isn't it, in HR? Efficiency is great,
correct,
but not if it comes at the cost of opportunity and equality and trust, really.
So moving on from the automated rejections, we're now looking at, can NLP really make hiring faster? NLP, for the listeners, is natural language processing. So, Paul, I read a paper and it was from a gentleman in Turkey, and it digs into how NLP can automate resume or CV screening more fairly and efficiently.
Yeah, so I guess, the researchers wanted to solve that classic HR problem, didn't they, that we've spoken about already, which is too many CVs, not enough time. So the NLP system automatically extracts competencies. So instead of scanning for buzzwords, it looks for the actual skills relevant to a job description.
Exactly. So they build a data set for 1, 2, 3 job roles. They match candidate skills to required competencies using 2 similar measures. And I know it's getting a bit techie here, but they've got the cosine similarity and the J-card similarity. That's the methods that they called them. And it turns out the J-card gave better results because it focused on the presence of skills in the CV, not how many times they were mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? Because cosine counts frequency. So repeating words like Python. So I'm trying to hire a Python developer and they've mentioned it 15 times. So like in classic SEO, really, isn't it, a rank higher than someone who's actually had broader relevant skills? Whereas, like you said, a real example is Jacquard, on the other hand, will just check whether the skills exist at all. And it'll be much closer to how a fair recruiter would think. They look across the broad experience rather than just how many times do you mention Python.
Yeah, and the test showed that this method could rank candidates accurately, saving huge amounts of time and reducing bias, which we obviously discussed previously, by ignoring factors like name, gender, or age. So the system purely compares competencies. It doesn't care who the person actually is.
Yeah, and they've even integrated it, I believe, into LinkedIn, so it can pull in data automatically as well. And that's obviously powerful, isn't it? So, like, an AI recruiter that reads the skills, scores the match, and produces a rank list instantly, and then verifying it as well via LinkedIn is a really, it's a leap forward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and but it admits there's some limits. It works brilliantly for technical roles that you and I are probably looking for, like you say, the Python developer. But that's obviously where skills are well defined, like looking for a SQL Server admin or someone in network security or machine learning. But obviously, it's weaker with softer skills, like I need someone with strong leadership knowledge or creativity, because of course, I suppose those are harder to quantify.
Yeah, and I guess that also flags the ethical side again, doesn't it? It's transparent and competency based, but still needs explainability. So candidates should know why they were ranked a certain way. And then I'd imagine there's like a freedom of information request you could have where you could request what the scoring was almost if you're going to introduce that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they did recommend building inexplainable AI that expands data sets to cover obviously more industries and languages. Overall, though, the big takeaway is that NLP can make hiring faster and more objective if it's designed around the skills, not the demographics.
And I think that's a glimpse again of the future where AI can actually remove bias instead of amplifying it. So, right here, right now, there's bias across the systems. But yeah, if there's these papers and these research opportunities going on to try and counter that, then it means we can build it with fairness front and center. And I think that's absolutely key.
So, effectively, what we're saying, Paul, the front end of recruitment, the large volume jobs are being impacted first. The human recruiter shifts from reading every CV to supervising AI, interpreting the results, handling deeper interviews, and candidate experience. So, as we say many times, listeners, this is Paul and I's opinion. Obviously, we've researched this topic, but obviously, Paul, I honestly believe recruiters will face challenges. The volume and speed, AI we know can filter through thousands of CVs in minutes, putting pressure, of course, on recruiters to keep up or lose control. There'll obviously need to be a skill shift in the recruitment training. Recruiters are going to need to know or need to be more tech savvy, understanding AI tools like the automation we talked about in previous podcasts. What things can they do to help their jobs become easier? Because if they don't, other people are going to be doing it. The value proposition, if much of the screening is automated, what unique value does the recruiter bring post 2026? They'll probably need to focus on the candidate experience more. We've mentioned about that. The cultural fit, and probably more understanding the employer and what they typically recruit, ensuring that their business remains effective in 2026.
So, as more companies turn to AI to help with hiring, a key question keeps coming up is, can an AI algorithm really judge people fairly? And a recent study by observers and researchers in China explored this exact issue. So, comparing how job applicants feel when a human reviews their CV versus when an AI software does it. So, over to you, Sean, for the experiment.
Yeah, so the team ran 2 online experiments with over 400 participants who imagined applying for a job. So they changed 2 main things. One was who screened the CVs, obviously a human recruiter or an AI system, to the outcome, whether the applicant passed or was rejected. They also tested whether the AI's expertise level was basic versus specialist and whether that made a difference. So again, just kind of recapping, listeners, if you did watch Can AI Take My Job on Channel 4, it's a very similar concept with this experiment. You obviously had the AI agent versus the human doer, the person that had the role.
Yeah. And they came up with like 3 key findings from this research. So the first one is AI does feel less fair. So people consistently felt that when the AI made the decision, the process was less fair, both in how decisions were made and how results were handed out. Humans were trusted more because they could use empathy and judgment, whereas AI was seen as a black box that we've already talked about. Results matter. So when applicants got good news, they were invited to interview. They viewed both human and AI decisions positively, but when rejected, fairness perceptions drop sharply, especially if AI made the call. So that's a really interesting insight. And then expert AI helps a bit. So if people were told the AI was a specialist trained in recruitment, they judged it as a slightly fairer than a generic AI. So expertise seems to build a bit of trust, but not enough sort of to close the gap when compared with human decision makers.
Yeah, so what does this mean, obviously, for businesses? Obviously, AI hiring tools saves time, but they risk damaging trust if applicants don't understand how the decisions are made and if they're actually told whether decisions were made by AI or human. Transparency, of course, is critical. So that's what I'm saying. You need to explain what data or what the data the AI is looking at and how it reduces that black box feeling. Human AI collaboration is the sweet spot. So, of course, you need to say AI is filtering the data, but as I just mentioned, keep people involved in the final decisions for empathy and context. Communicate expertise, position your AI as a specialist tool, increase applicant confidence if you explain that.
Yeah, definitely. And the technology itself might also cause disruption. So there's like a phenomenon, if I can't say the word, there's a
Phenomenon.
phenomenon called candidate gaming. So as AI screening becomes known, applicants, may optimize CVs or generate via AI to make it harder to identify a genuine fit. And this will probably, in the example, where people loaded it with duplicate keywords. I mean, I have a genuine concern that I would be staggered if the majority of applicants in 2026 are not using AI to generate their CV. And then the AI CV goes into AI. So the candidate's represented by AI. It goes into an AI algorithm that then is ultimately reviewing the human but through the lens of an AI CV, which is painting its best picture. And then we're not a million miles away. There's technologies around today that you can use where you can clone your voice and you can clone yourself in video. So even when you get to thinking about video screening, I've got this within 6 months, you will definitely have AI video interviews being conducted between an AI candidate and an AI interviewer. It's not within the realms of impossibility. And that is like candidate gaming at 100%, really. And it's like, why have we diminished accountability and ownership to AI entirely to recruit? And I think I've already heard stories of that happening. I know at least recruitment agencies that are using video interviewing where it is an AI generated version of the interview, and they're not thinking necessarily that the candidate is AI.
Yeah, it makes positive sense really because I've got some software like you just mentioned, Top Media AI. Give them a bit of a plug, and of course it can absolutely replicate my voice, my tone, and as you rightly said, if I want to stand up and do an interview for, let's say, Greengular Apps, and we've got these tools that are sitting there assessing my tone, my voice. In retrospect, there's going to be opportunities for me to get that absolutely perfect.
And the argument they say is when I spoke to one of these companies is, but we record every interview and we watch every interview. But then if you're filtering on thousands, are you really watching half an hour of every single interview? Or are you watching the videos of your shortlist, if that makes sense? So, I mean, that brings up, we've already touched on, isn't it, ethical and regulatory risks. So AI-driven tools might inadvertently discriminate. And then we're going to touch on the ethics and discrimination in AI recruitment right now. So over to you, Sean.
So ethics and discrimination in AI-driven recruitment. There's a great study, Paul, it was done in 2023 by Zisheng Shen that looked into how bias creeps into these supposedly neutral systems.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating topic, isn't it? With the research that you've shared with me. So this study reviewed almost 50 papers, and they found that while AI can make hiring faster and cheaper, it's also capable of amplifying bias. Basically, it learns from historical data. Obviously, that's how an LLM is powered. And that data is often full of gender bias, racial bias, personality bias. that's already existing in the job market today.
Yeah, exactly. So if a company has mostly hired men for technical roles, let's say in software development, in the past, the algorithm assumes that there's a success pattern. So it's the old bias in and bias out problem. And I think it's Dr. Shen, he even mentioned examples like Amazon's AI tool that downgraded CVs containing the word female.
That is
Naughty.
truly shocking. And
Absolutely.
Microsoft's chatbot Tay, which picked up racist language online within hours, these systems didn't intend to discriminate. They just mirror the data they're fed. So the danger here is that AI can look objective whilst quietly repeating the same inequalities that exist in humanity.
Yeah, and I think Shen's going back to what we were talking about earlier on. It's what data is being fed into these systems. So fixing this takes two approaches. First, technical solutions, things like building fairer data sets, making the algorithms more transparent, and testing for bias using tools such as Google's What If tool or Facebook's Fairness Flow.
Yeah, and second, he raised that it's management and ethics. So companies need internal ethics committees, regular audits, and more diverse developer teams. So these people design the algorithms and they make it better. And the algorithms really matter. If everyone building the tech looks and thinks the same, the bias is baked in.
Yeah, right. And you can see where it's going to go. GDPR. This is the next stage, isn't it? Obviously, GDPR making almost the decisions that we need to make, getting it right. And Shen argues we'll need more of that. We'll need more regulations, independent oversight, and clear accountability.
Yeah, so the takeaway here, I guess, for the listener is AI can transform recruitment, but it has to be done with fairness, transparency, and human oversight. Otherwise, we risk automating discrimination instead of removing it.
Perfectly said. The tech's powerful, but the ethics have to keep up.
Yeah.
So let's speculate. AI as an assistant, not a replacement. The best future may be human plus AI working together. Video and behavioural AI analysis, analysing facial expressions, voice tone, micro behaviours. Obviously, what you said, Paul, earlier on about the fact that that could actually be a video of a clone of yourself. That's another subject matter. Skills-based hiring, continuous assessment rather than one-off CVs. Personalised candidate experience at scale. Organisational rethinking recruitment end-to-end, not just tacking on technology.
Yeah, and I guess from the software side, we anticipate more platforms integrating LLMs, smart agents for recruitment, but also a pushback. So this recurring theme of the podcast, really, transparency, the explainability of AI decisions, candidate fairness, and also research points in this direction.
So, Paul, we've talked about fairness and ethics in our recruitment, but now let's look at the tech itself. Obviously, following on from this, there's a study by Shengao Gan. Gosh, these names are hard to pronounce. And his team shows that how LLMs can completely transform CV screening.
Yeah, and I think this one's really interesting because they built what they call a LLM agent framework for recruitment. So in simple terms, it's an AI system that reads, summarises and grades CVs automatically instead of a recruiter spending hours sifting through piles of applications. This AI can do it in minutes. I wish I had this back in 2002. I was doing 200 of them. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. In their test, the system was 11 times faster than traditional manual screening. And because it uses LLMs models trained to understand context and meaning, it's not just keyword matching anymore on the CVs, it's generally assessing what's written and ranking candidates based on relevance.
Yeah, and they fine-tuned the model too. So they achieved an F1 score of nearly 88% for accurately classifying CV sentences. And that's a big deal in the world of AI because it means that it's not just fast, but it's pretty accurate understanding who might be a good fit for the role.
Yeah, and the framework also used LLM agents for decision making. So multiple AIs collaborate, which, like I was saying to you before, Paul, like a panel of recruiters. So you've got a panel of AI agents, each one handling a task. So one is summarizing, One grades, another one compares the candidate. So together they decide who should move forward to the next stage.
Yeah, and I think just a quick segue, that's classic, agent development that we spoke about in other things. It's like, what I like about it is it's like they create agents of single responsibility. So just achieve one job, pass it on to the next, pass it on to the next. So I think that's a really good example just based on previous podcasts we've done. And because of that, their results were really impressive. So the fine-tuned model outperformed ChatGPT 3.5 at the time when it came to summarising and scoring resumes. So it shows that the right tuning, these systems can outperform general purpose AIs.
Yeah, I suppose what's exciting is if you're looking at it on the positive point of view of the recruiter, what this can do is really sort of help out with the early stages of recruitment, sort of doing all the faff, as we said, piling through the CVs, getting to a shorter list of the right candidates, and then recruiters spending less time on the admin side, which is really that CV shifting, and more time on interviewing or building relationships.
Exactly. And I think, this goes back to, again, previous conversations we've had, which is about we're in the age of trust and we should be maximizing what we can do as humans and eliminate the admin. And that's, again, a perfect example, isn't it? Is if you've got your team who are spending more time interviewing and building relationships, that's exactly why you employ them, if that makes sense. You shouldn't be employing them to do admin. And it raises the same questions we've talked about before, which is speed and efficiency are great, but what about fairness? And the model still depends on the data it's trained on. So it's powerful, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, and looking back to what you always say, Paul, about where is AI right now and where it's going to be in 2-3 years' time. Because at the moment, it's, as you say, it's new, it's a new technology, but in 2 or 3 years' time, it's going to be that much more advanced. So yes, we're saying that LLMs will do the heavy lifting, but keeping humans involved for context and ethics at this stage, doing this right, the tech could make recruitment both smarter and faster. But as you rightly say, it's got to stay transparent and it's got to be fair.
Yeah. And for recruitment agencies, you've either got to adapt, haven't you, and offer real high-value human-led services, or you risk being commoditized completely.
Absolutely. And differentiation matters. So will the application pool be flooded by AI generated CVs, which I think you said it's going to be, and people or recruiters.
I know what I would do, Sean.
Well, absolutely. It's about being first, isn't it? These days, isn't it? Really, you're going to try technology, you're going to invest in it, and you're going to see what it can do. So here's something from our experience. In the early days, as we said, we built keyword-based software tools, and we looked at candidates who overloaded keywords that got through, and the system flagged those as high. That taught us automation without the nuance, fails. But now with advanced AI, we're seeing deeper parsing, but also deeper issues. The tool doesn't know culture, learning agility, or interpersonal skills.
Yeah, and we recently worked on a system where video responses were auto-scored for a client, and the results were mixed. High volume roles worked, but for senior roles, human screening still dominated.
Yeah, so let's go through the risks then. So Paul, here's a new one that's a bit uncomfortable but incredibly important. A University of Washington study found that modern AI hiring tools are showing strong radical and gender bias when ranking for job applicants.
Yeah, and this one was eye-opening, Sean, when you shared it with me. It's like the researchers tested 3 advanced large language models, similar to the ones powering today's AI systems. And they found the models favoured white-sounding names 85% of the time, while black-sounding names were only favoured 9% of the time.
Yeah, and it gets worse. Female names were preferred just 11% of the time, and the AI never once ranked a black male named higher than a white male name. And it's astonishing, because we go back to the data that's been fed into these, and just why on earth that's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? And the team used over 550 real-world CVs and 500 job listings across 9 job types swapped 120 first names linked to different race and genders, and it added up more than 3 million comparisons. So the data set alone proves it wasn't a small test.
Yeah, and the research pointed out that these models aren't deliberately racist or sexist. Of course they're not. They're just reflecting the bias in the data they've been trained on. But because companies use them at scale, that bias gets multiplied and automated.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we discussed before this podcast was it's like you're giving bias a turbocharger. And because a lot of these systems are closed and proprietary, there's hardly any independent auditing. And the study noted, apart from a law in New York City, there's basically no regulation for AI hiring tools.
Yeah, and it goes back to that conversation just in the earlier question we talked about with GDPR, isn't it? Where's this law going to be set up? And what I find interesting is how they look at intersectional liberty, how overlapping identifiers like race and gender combine. For example, white women didn't face as much disadvantage compared to white men, but black men faced the strongest bias overall.
Yeah, and I think one of the researchers said there's a unique harm against black men that you don't see if you only look at race or gender separately. It shows how complex fairness really is. You can't just fix one category and then assume everything's equal.
Yes, the big takeaway here is that while AI can make hiring faster, we're hearing here it's not neutral. These systems need to be regulated, as we said, tested, and trained with fairness in mind. Otherwise, we risk embedding decades of discrimination into our technology.
Yeah, and I think the AI is efficient. There's no doubt about it, but it's biased. And if it's biased, it's not progress, is it? So it's just discrimination at machine speed.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of putting it.
And there's, of course, a reputational risk for employers. If candidates feel they were unfairly screened by robots, and also the risk of losing the human touch, so the candidate experience deteriorates as well. Yeah, it's food for thought.
Yeah, so let's think about some advice and actionable takeaways from this then. So our top takeaways, well, from what I'm written down here, Paul, is use AI to augment, not replace human recruiters. Ensure your toolset includes transparency and audibility of decisions. Example, why was that candidate filtered from the list? Keep human candidate experience neutral and central. Track metrics beyond speed, quality of hire, retention and diversity outcomes, and stay current. Tools evolve fast. LLMs, video assessment, and behavioural AI.
Yeah, and for recruitment firms and software houses, diversifying your offering, lean into consultancy, candidate experience, employer brand, and technology advisory as well. If you simply offer, we'll process your CVs, you'll face price pressure. So for applicants, you want to optimize your skills, you want to tell your story, and you want to show proof as well of impact. Don't rely on keywords alone.
So for our listeners out there, obviously we've gone through a lot today, and we've referenced many studies, and you can obviously read more about this from the show notes. So the background reading and the podcasts themselves, we will actually put them in the show notes when we actually publish this broadcast.
So an exciting addition to the podcast this week. We're going to be looking at tech news around AI and a couple of stories that have jumped out at us related to this very topic. And it was basically brought to us by a listener who gave us some feedback. So we're going to cover two news stories this week. We're going to look at Amazon's latest job cuts. And we're also going to look at the ChatGPT Atlas browser that's been launched. So let's dive into it.
Well, yes, Amazon's back in the headlines again, this time for cutting around 14,000 corporate jobs. That's roughly 4% of their office-based workforce.
And what's interesting is that Amazon's framing it as a strategic restructuring, not a financial crisis. They're saying it's about cutting layers of management, reducing bureaucracy, and speeding up decision-making, almost like they're trying to run the world's biggest company like a startup again.
Exactly, but the timing's telling because they've also ramped up spending, as we know. They actually said that they were going to spend more on artificial intelligence. So it feels like they're saying we don't need as many humans, but we've got smarter systems now.
And I think that's the conversation that everyone's having, from the SME to the Amazons of the world who've got more than 1 million employees. And then these aren't warehouse or delivery jobs being cut right now. These are corporate roles, software engineers, recruiters, middle managers, the kind of jobs people once thought were safe in the tech world.
Yeah, it's a shift from headcount to efficiency. So even though Amazon's still growing, they're tightening up. It's not just cost cutting. We know that they've made significant amounts of profits.
Billions.
Yeah, billions. It's reallocation of resources to automation and AI driven operations.
Yeah, and the ripple effect is huge. Like when a company like Amazon starts doing that, it signals to every other business you can do more with less. That's going to hit across industries, HR, finance, marketing, anywhere repetitive tasks can be automated, really.
And they said that they'll keep hiring in strategic areas. Of course, that's what they're going to say. So it's not a total freeze. It's just that the definition of strategic now seems to be more or mean AI related.
It's a skill shift as well, not just a headcount reduction. The question is, how do you stay relevant in a world where AI can replace half of what you do?
Yeah, and from a cultural point of view, it's tricky. You can't say you're streamlining for innovation and expect morale to stay high. People are going to start wondering, when am I next?
It's the human cost of technological progress. The efficiency gains are undeniable, but there's always a trade off in trust, loyalty, and company culture.
So the big question for us today is Amazon generally becoming more efficient, or are we just watching AI become the corporate scapegoat for job cuts?
And how long before other companies start following their lead?
Which, as we know, that's what we're hearing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Microsoft announced it before Amazon, didn't they? Was it 40,000 at Microsoft?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for your good news story, Sean.
We'll carry on. So, Paul, big news in the AI world again. OpenAI has just announced ChatGPT Atlas, which is a brand new web browser built around ChatGPT itself. Watch out, Google.
Yeah, and I didn't really know much about this until it appeared one day on my chat when I logged in. I was like, "What's this?" So this is like a major shift, really. Up till now, ChatGPT was something you visited away from kind of really. I know it's become a search engine, but Atlas flips that on its head. So now it goes around the web with you. So think of it like having a co-pilot that actually understands what's on your screen and helps you in real time.
Exactly. Instead of copying and pasting text into ChatGPT, you can ask it questions right inside Atlas that you're on. Let's say you're reading a long article. It can summarize it, explain terms, or even compare it to other sources without having to switch tabs.
Yeah, I think the comparison I drew when I first started using it was, probably if people are using Google Drive, you have Gemini inside Drive now, and that's doing exactly that task. And then also we've been promoting basically Mind Studio, which does exactly the same thing. And then now Atlas comes along and is basically a mix of Gemini and Mind Studio, but already built into the site. So you're navigating, like you said, Sean. And what they've done is they've built in memory. So that's the extra special thing they've done. So it remembers what you've been researching, what projects you're working on. For example, it could say, hey, last week you were looking at these job listings. Want me to summarize the trends for your next interview? So it's memory and it's contextual kind of site navigational help right there in the browser.
There he is, bringing it back into the recruitment there. But yeah, it's like having a personal assistant, isn't it, who actually remembers the contexts. But that also raises the privacy question. They said browsers' memories are optional and you can delete or archive them at any time, but it's definitely going to spark the how much do we let AI remember debate.
Yeah, and the big addition also within Atlas is what they're calling agent mode. So this is where ChatGPT doesn't just help you, it actually does things for you. So it can research, it can book appointments, it can plan events, or it can automate repetitive tasks while you browse.
So imagine you're planning a trip. Atlas could compare hotels, check the weather, pull up reviews on the hotels themselves, and even fill out booking forms, all without leaving your browser. It's productivity on steroids.
Yeah, and it's launched first on Mac OS, which is why I've been able to access it. But Windows, iOS, and Android are coming soon. It's open to free, plus, pro, and business users. So it's not just a premium feature, which is very smart.
Yeah, it feels like the beginning of the AI browser wars. You've got Arc, Copilot, as you mentioned before, now Atlas, each trying to blend browsing and intelligence. But what makes Atlas interesting is that it's built from ChatGPT. So it's not just with it bolted on.
Yeah, and I think it's a reminder of where the web is heading, from search engines to understanding engines. The browser becomes less of a tool and more of a partner in how you work, learn, and create.
So maybe the question for us is, are we ready for a browser that knows us this well? Because the line between convenience and surveillance is getting very thin.
Yeah, and Atlas might be the powerful browser ever built, but it also is a test of how much users trust they're willing to give AI. And we're going to talk for the next sort of 1 minute on how it's got some vulnerabilities.
Yeah, exactly. We know it's clever, the Omnibox, which is a combined address bar and search bar, because we know it doesn't just read URLs, it also interprets natural language commands. So a hacker can disguise a command as a URL, and Atlas will treat it as a trusted instruction.
Yeah, and they're calling it a prompt injection attack. So basically, instead of typing, open google.com, someone can paste a link in that says, mywebsite.com/visit this page. But inside, it hides something like delete my files or open a phishing site, and the browser just does it.
Yeah, and it blurs the line between a command and a click. So the researcher showed how an attacker could even hide that fake link behind a copy link button. One click and suddenly the AI is following malicious instructions.
Yeah, and I think where this gets really scary is if your browser is now taking action based on links across the web, and because it already integrates with tools like Microsoft and Google Drive or your email, the risk isn't just visiting bad websites in theory. It can basically steal and delete your private data from any connected service.
Yeah, OpenAI security team have acknowledged this is it for listeners. It's a serious issue. Of course it is. Their CISO said prompt injections are still an unsolved frontier problem. Sounds like Star Trek, doesn't it? They've done red team testing and added guardrails, but this shows how easy it is to manipulate an AI system by tricking its context, not its code.
Yeah, and I think the fascinating thing about this story and OpenAI's admission as well is this isn't hacking in the traditional sense. You're not breaking into software. You're not convincing the AI to hack itself. You're getting it to act as a hacker and feeding it, poisoned instructions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's social engineering for machines. Instead of manipulating people, you're manipulating prompts.
Yeah, and other AI browsers like Perplexity Comet and Opera Neon have faced similar issues. In some cases, attackers even hid invisible text or injected commands inside images, which the AI picked up through OCR.
It's turning into an arms race. Attackers finding new prompts and tricks, and AI companies patch them, just like old school viruses, Paul.
Yeah, and the takeaway for me is that we're entering an era where AI security equals prompt security. So protecting users isn't about firewalls and passwords anymore. It's not just about those things, sorry. It's about controlling what the AI listens to.
Exactly. Atlas is powerful, but it's also proving the point when your browser understands you, it means it can be manipulated against you.
So, can we ever build an AI assistant that's truly helpful and completely unhackable?
Well, that's the challenge of our generation, isn't it? Intelligence without vulnerability.
So, two hand-picked news stories there from that new section. So, in summary, Amazon's job cuts reflect how tech companies are betting on AI and infrastructure and reassessing human capital accordingly. We've talked about the launch of Atlas and how it shows that AI is becoming embedded at the very layer of how we access the internet. Browsers are no longer just a window to content, but they're interactive AI spaces, workspaces. And both stories signal a shift in where value lies, not just in doing tasks, but in designing, integrating, overseeing, and interpreting AI tools and agent-based workflows. So for both of our companies, Just Applications and Green Gorilla Automation, it means our roadmap should include AI integration, smart automation, human plus machine models, secure design, and positioning services where human judgment still reigns.
What a podcast today, Paul. We've gone through a lot of information. As we said earlier, we'll obviously put all the links in the bottom of the podcast. But that's it for this week's episode of Control Alt Dev. Today, we've explored how AI is reshaping recruitment, giving businesses the power to handle hiring themselves. From automated CV analysis to intelligent video assessments, it's a huge shift in mindset, moving recruitment from human filtering to data-driven decision-making. And as we've seen in the news this week, as Paul said, with Amazon cutting thousands of roles to double down on AI, and the news Atlas AI browser changing, and how we even use the internet, this transformation is only accelerating. The world of work is evolving fast, and the companies that thrive will be those that adapt, combine human insight with AI capability. So thanks for tuning in to Control Alt Dev. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn or wherever you'll get your podcasts. And join us next time as we keep decoding how technology is rewriting the rules of business. Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.